First and foremost, appearing beautiful, right? So Abramelin contains squares specifically for causing yourself to appear beautiful in the eyes of others. And mind you, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So different people have different aesthetic values when it comes to beauty. So there's a shape shifting quality here, right? So it isn't really about physically changing at all. It's about shifting that perception layer, which magic is, right? We're shifting the layer of perception. It shifts the aura of how you're being received. So a lot of people, they're like, well, I don't understand how that works. Well, if you're shifting perception and you're shifting aura, which is part of quantum mechanics, it's part of physics, then yeah, somebody's going to perceive you differently. They are going to see you presented almost in a different way, the way that they visualize you. So yeah, it's very, very much real. So I would charge it under a full moon. I would maybe use violet or jasmine oils. Maybe you're going to put it in your wallet. If you're doing a money drawing spell, maybe you're going to put it in your photo. If you're doing some healing or binding work, maybe you're going to wear it on your body. I have a whole video on fitness witchery. They actually have those body markers, like they're for games or for sexy time. They have like these body markers. I have used those to put sigils, seals, and squares on my body, and I'll sweat them out during my workout as a way to activate and absorb that frequency. So, you can bury it, you can burn it, whatever works for you and is part of your practice. That's really important because it should be something in your wheelhouse that you're comfortable with that works for you. Of course, a note on ethics, because we don't talk about that a whole lot. I do have ethics, believe it or not, you guys. Free will is a conversation you need to have with yourself before you do any love working. This is a personal thing, okay? There is a difference between opening a door and forcing someone through it, definitely. All I'm saying is I want you to know which one you're doing and why you're doing it, because the intention is going to shape the current of that work. I'm not judging. I'm not saying do one way or the other. What I'm saying is be clear about what you're doing and how you're doing it, because you need to shape that into your intention. Vagueness is the number one killer of spell work, you guys. It's got to be very specific, and you got to make sure that you are covering all doors here. So again, just kind of an FYI, love spells are some of the hardest spells to manifest, but part of it is because if we are not going to follow the guidelines of free will, if we are forcing someone through a door, that needs to be part of the current of the intention. If we're leaving it open like they're a voluntary participant, of course it's not going to work, right? Just kind of a FYI. And then you're going to close and release. So don't obsess over it. This is the number one thing with magic, you guys. When we are manipulating energy, when we are transmuting energy, the more we fixate, the more we obsess, the more we create self-sabotage and blockage, and even sometimes reversal and return, aspects. You have to let it go. And I know that's the hardest thing. One of the hardest things, as a professional practitioner is I have clients that come to me and I do work and nothing happens for a couple of weeks, sometimes even a couple of months. And there is this, sadness and this desperation and this, they can't stop thinking about it, and they're emailing me, and I'm like, listen, you've got to walk away from this. You got to walk away from this. And I've had people a year later come back to me and say, oh my God, it just happened. And I'm like, because you finally stopped fixating on it. I'm guilty of that too, you guys. I'm guilty of the same things I redirect you guys on. I struggle with some of those things too. We just have to keep reminding ourselves, listen, we set the intent, the universe has it. We got to let it go. We got to go about our life, and we got to let it happen the way it needs to happen. So the yant loses power gradually as rules are broken. In very serious cases, practitioners describe the yant actually turning on the bearer and creating cross conditions. It brings in the opposite of its intended effect. All right. So a protection yant that attracts harm instead is a good example. A luck yant that brings bad luck is an example. It isn't punishment. We always, why are we being punished? Saturn, right? No, it's not that. It's basically what happens when a living instrument is mishandled. Okay. The circuitry breaks down. Okay. So you got to be mindful. Now, the Y crew is the annual renewal. So Wat Bang Fa That's a temple. It holds this annual ceremony. It's called Teacher Respect Day in English, but it's usually in March. I believe it's in March. It's where thousands gather to have their yants renewed and recharged by the monks. So practitioners kind of enter like this trance state as the yant is reactivated by the monks' collective chanting. So they all chant together. So if you can't attend that annually, there are smaller private renewal ceremonies that your ajarn kind of maintains like free of charge. And they will renew it for you. Okay. I would avoid any tourist oriented shops like in Bangkok's Khao San Road area. Those are mostly going to be commercial. There's no lineage there. Anyone who's learned in a short course or from YouTube, practitioners who let you pick any design without consultation's a red flag. If there's no kata or sacred prayers given, that's a red flag. If there's no offering ceremony, that's a red flag. Fixed pricing menus, it doesn't work that way. Anyone calling it yantra tattoo as a brand without any Buddhist or animist context, huge red flag. Instagram famous ajarns with no verifiable lineage, red flag. Yeah, you guys. So make sure, unfortunately, we just live in a world that can be really shitty, taking advantage of spiritual folk. I have a kit in my shop. It is a sacred tattoo kit. It is for runic designs. It comes with prescriptions. So it's like bind runes. It is a combination of runes, only we don't bind them. We keep them separate. So the lineage parallel here. So this Sakyant is kind of a perfect example of how lineage practices work. We all have lineage, whether you know what it is or not. My book is coming out next year, and I actually have a case study in there, and I have 9 generations on my maternal lineage side. I have all of our astrodiagnostics. And I didn't know my great, 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 great grandma Nancy. I didn't know really my great, great, great grandma Sir Linda, but there is transmission. So that's why I always encourage you guys, know your transmission, know your lineage. You don't have to have known these people. You're not going to know these people. And there's probably very little that has remained from their era. But if you can find out their birth date and birth location, you can do a noonday chart. You can find out some of those core concepts of who they were as a person on a soul level with the second harmonics to kind of see what that transmission looks like for you. Anyway, moving on. The Ajarn receives a tradition from their master, who received it from theirs in like this unbroken chain. And that's why the lineage transmission is important. So they kind of carry the authority of every practitioner that's lived before them, right? Because it's handed down generationally. So the information doesn't just live in the technique, it lives in like this thread. Again, my book's called The Thread Holds, and that's why I keep referencing the thread. Authority cannot be inherited, it needs to be transmitted. So an Ajarn's child does not automatically have their parents' power, just like in what we do. So my daughters, Maddie and Lainey, they don't automatically inherit. They're the 9th generation, right? So they're not going to just automatically inherit all 8 generations. They have to receive the full transmission, the knowledge, the kata, the ceremony of passing from a legitimate master, which for them would be me, their mother. It's the same principle here in every genuine lineage tradition. You cannot self-initiate and to receive knowledge. That thread requires 2 ends. Now, we can talk about morphic resonance fields all day long. Now, morphic resonance fields, there is that transmission value there, but there needs to be a kick, right? And the kick is the teacher in this particular situation. The parallel to our family's practice, 6th generation transmission, we actually have 9, but there were a couple generations that refused their gifts. So we have to say 6 because 3 generations, 1 is not developed enough. Actually, Maddie and Lainey are the 8th, the 9th is Ollie. So Ollie's a baby. Ollie